Hello and welcome to video number 3 of my Seattle Pocket Page scrapping sessions. This is the beginning of my second session. So I think I scrapbooked on December 13th and 14th, and I think this is like the 20th and 21st or something like that. No, it's like the 30th and 31st or something. Anyhow, I'm trying to finish off these pages. It is now after Christmas, and sure enough, that iris container did not get bumped, and all of those little stacks of photos that I had set up in video number 1 are still waiting for me. These are the pages that I have. I'm just going to quickly flip through them so I remember what I've already documented, so I can kind of hopefully keep up the momentum from several days before when I had started this. So this is what my workspace looks like as I'm setting it up and just kind of organizing. I'm putting out all of those little piles of photos that I had out before. Again, I have the iris container on the floor over to my left, and that's where I can keep stamp sets and stickers and any other embellishments that I don't necessarily want right on my table space. Now, one thing that I forgot to do in the first 2 videos was to use some of these stamp sets. So I'm going to spend a bit of time right here just keeping in mind some of these. And also, I didn't even open that Ellie Edwards Stories kit that had some pretty nice embellishments in it. So I took those apart so that I could be sure to use them. This is a travel stamp that you can make these little seals with. I really like that. This is an old Kelly Perky stamp set that has a travel theme. And I just want to keep in mind what kinds of phrasing and designs are on those stamp sets, because I want to make sure that I put them to good use. So now we're all set, and my camera is weird. You're going to see my lap more often than I'd like you to, but I've fixed that now, so it won't happen in future videos. I have my Design A template right here, and this time I am designing an insert. So I'm going to start with this insert. This is all of the photos that I have printed up, not all the photos I took, but all the ones that I printed up from the Chihuly, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the Chihuly Glass Gardens, Garden and Glass, I guess it's called. It looks like I'm making a single page spread here, but I'm actually designing 2 sides of a insert. Now, what made me decide to do this as an insert is that all of these photos have a very similar vibe to them, and they're all very much focused on the artwork that is in this particular place. So I wanted it to kind of be an obvious separate thing. So that's why I decided to go with a insert here. There's no right or wrong way to scrapbook, so I could have definitely laid these out on a 12 by 12 page and made it be half of a spread, or I could have designed it across the top half of a 2-page spread. There's a bunch of different ways that you could scrapbook themed photos that all kind of go together within the context of a pocket page, but I really like this idea of using inserts. I find that it gives my album a more interesting feel to have some pages that are different sizes and shapes than the other pages, and it really is a good way to contain photos that all go together. They're all on that same little flap. So as you can see, I am picking out some cards. I've laid out my photos as I always do, and now I'm just using some cards to fill in those spaces. Everything that you see on the left half of that template is going to be on the front of the insert, and everything on the right side of that template is going to be on the back side of the insert. And because that Keep Exploring card is double-sided, I'm actually going to use both sides of the one card. So that's why that top right-hand cell doesn't have anything in it. See, I'm just on the back side of that card, I'm going to mount that photo, and then I'll do some journaling below the word exploring. And I can't remember if I do that now or if I do it later. I guess we'll see. I think I'm going to do it now. So And I'm just looking for my marker and making sure that it's going to write properly on that kind of a card. I'm using my Stettler, my Faber-Castell Pitt pens here. And I'm just kind of trying to think about how am I going to lay out this journaling. I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying. All of my journaling is off the top of my head. I very rarely pre-write it. And so I'm just saying the Chihuly Gardens was beautiful and a bit of a break from the fast-paced touristy attractions we had been seeing. Now it is very touristy. It's obviously an attraction, but it's a calm. It had a different feel. It was very calm and relaxing as opposed to the rest of the trip, which was more kind of fast-paced and exciting. So I glued those tickets together in such a way that you're seeing the back side of one of them and the front side of the other. And then I just glued them onto that matte paper that I have cut out and used in a few other places on these pages. And then I'm gluing those two photos that are that's the same display, but one is close up and one is from further away. And I glued them on top of one another and onto a card. And now this card says keep exploring, and I want to use my Seattle stamp here, and I also want to use it the Space Needle right here. So I'm just looking at what other stamps are here that I might want to use. I'm going to stick with those for now. So I grabbed my mini Misty tool, and I'm going to start by stamping the Seattle needle right here over to the side, and then I'll be able to do some journaling all around it. I am using Versafine. Okay, so first of all, I think I'm going to do this in gold, and then I haven't used this gold ink for a very long time, and I forgot how it works. It really works much, much better on a dark background, like a black or a very, very navy blue. So I decided to ink it, and then I didn't like how it looked, so I decided to re-ink it with my Versafine Onyx Black ink on top of that gold. And you can't even see the gold because I used my Misty, so it allowed me to stamp in exactly the same place. Now, I think that the fact that gold ink was down first made that stamp more susceptible to smudging than normally it would be. See how I put my thumb right in the middle of it? I think that's when the smudge happened. But the next time you see that card, it's gonna have a smudge on it. See that? I didn't even notice it yet. But anyhow, it has a bit of a smudge, and that's okay. I'm using navy blue ink from Stampin' Up. I think it's called Night of Navy. Stampin' Up is my favorite dye ink, and I just love it. So I have all the colors. I'm familiar with the colors. I know what their color library is like and what to look for, and so that's why I mostly use Stampin' Up inks these days. So I cleaned that stamp and put it away, and now my stamping is done. And I do have the smudge, and the longer, I think my sleeve made that smudge even worse. So I probably should have just heat set that, but by the time I noticed the smudge, I thought that it was already as smudged as it was going to get. I do want to do some journaling on this, and so I'll tell you what it's going to say. We took tons of pictures of the gorgeous glass art and tried to get reflections of the Space Needle in most of them. The garden is nestled at the base of the needle, a calm oasis in the middle of a busy, bustling city. So I thought that description kind of captured most of all that I needed to say about this place. So I'm just journaling off the top of my head, as I almost always do, and then I'm going to underline, and I flipped it this way to underline it so that I didn't drag my hand through that stamping of the Space Needle, because I'm still not sure that it won't smudge more. So now I'm just placing all of these cards inside of the insert. I'll take this one out and glue these to it so that I don't have to use a piece of washi tape to hold them together. And there we go. The Chihuly Glass and Garden Center is completely documented, and we're done with that. Okay, so next I have this series of photos, and as I spread them across my table to take stock of them and think about what I might want to do, I really liked how they looked like that. So what I've decided to do is to scrapbook these photos straight across the middle of this page, just like that, and have the journaling and embellishments and stuff be above and below it. This is not something that I've done very often, but these pages, these Design A page protectors, are very, very conducive to telling stories in this way, and I'm kind of surprised that I haven't done this before. So first, what I have to do is I left the room for a second to ask Scott the order in which these photos belong, because I don't want to stick them in there wrong. Also, all of this talk of coffee made me really want a coffee, so I brewed myself a coffee while I was gone. I came back all caffeinated, at least, have the caffeine in a cup beside me ready to go. And some of these photos that I have on hand will go on the next page, but I also had to ask Scott the name of the special fancy kind of coffee that we were getting. And so, yeah, I had to kind of come and go a little bit here. So excuse my absence for a few seconds longer. There I am. I'm back. So now let's get ready for this, because I have an idea, and I don't usually have ideas when I'm scrapbooking. I don't usually have a vision for a page like I did for this one. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to number these photos with some stamps. So Scott had sent me some information via text, and I was just checking it out on my watch. And so I got the name of the kind of coffee and also the other coffee. So these extra ones I will scrapbook on the other page. They're not part of this particular coffee experience. So I have 6 photos here to spread across 8 pockets. So I'll leave the first one and the last one for embellishments. And then the center will have the photos. Now I need to find some numbers to stamp, and the photos are pretty busy, and there's not a consistent place that I could stamp the numbers right on the photos and have it look nice and attention grabbing. So I'm going to stamp the numbers. I've got these 2 different options from Ellie's studio. I'm going to go with the larger of the 2. So I'm going to pick this set on my left. I keep thinking about it, but yeah, I'm going to go with the set on the left. And just taking a look at what other options. Then I remembered I have a coffee stamp from Kelly Perky that I might be able to use here too. So I went to my stash and grabbed that stamp set. And yeah, this page is going to be fun. So buckle up. It's going to be fun. We're going to be stamping numbers, the numbers as soon as I get myself together here. 1 through 6 onto white paper. So let's get it together, Tracy, and get moving. So I wanted to show you my space. I keep my punches in a Razcog, and that allows me to wheel them right over to my space. And as you can see, I can just look at what I've got and trial different punches and hopefully put them right back in the cart when I realize I'm done with them. Now, what I would have liked to have done is layered these circles with a pinked circle, but it's not going to work out. You'll see. You'll see why. The reason why is that I don't have enough craft supplies. I just don't have enough, clearly. So I'm going to stamp out the number 1. And I just have a tiny little block here. This is from Close to My Heart, I believe, but most stamp companies have a tiny little block like this, just easy to handle when you're doing small stamps. I'm putting plenty of space between them because I want to be able to punch them out with a circle without having the circle encroach on the space of the other number. So I'm spreading them out quite a bit. giving them more space than they probably need. This is a 1-inch punch, and you saw me just kind of trial some other ones. I wasn't sure which size I needed, but it turns out that my 1-inch punch was the best of my options here. And I didn't, I might have different options for die cutting, but I didn't want to have to run something through my die cutting machine multiple times. This is why it's nice to have some circle punches, because circles and hearts are such versatile shapes. It's good to have them on hand for this sort of a reason. I would have hate to have, have to roll that through a die cutting machine all those numbers of times. But if you didn't have a circle punch, you could easily do that. It would just take a little bit more time, or you could hand cut them or trace and fussy cut or whatever. So this is how it's going to look. The numbers are all going to be in the bottom right-hand corner for consistency. I want this page to have like the structure in the center of it, and then there will be white blocks of journaling throughout the top and the bottom in different places. So those are my thinking hands, the kind of scratch the side of your knuckles. So I'm just thinking, how am I going to structure this? And what I decided to do was, I want some white lined paper in maybe all or most. At this point, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look, but I want to put white lined paper or a grid paper of some sort in most of these 4x6 slots that we have here, above and below my photos. And so I went into my stash, and I have a category of paper called ledger/wood grain paper. And I'm looking at all of my ledger paper here. I have it kind of pulled out, and I'm going through the whole category, picking out anything that might look okay. And then I also have another category of paper called black and white. And I knew there was some lined paper in there from Felicity Jane. So I grabbed a piece of that Felicity Jane paper. It just felt the best to me of all those options. And I am going to cut these into 4x6, into horizontal 4x6 cards. So that means I can get 3 strips this way, and then I'll cut them in half so that I have a total of 6 of these. So let's put them in these places, and then maybe I'll do some filler cards or who knows what. At this point, it's still just kind of coming together in my head. But once you put some white on the page, those circle numbers don't look quite so stark. At first, I think it might have been some people who were talking to me on the live stream were saying that it could have been the contrast between all of the browns in the photos plus the brown on my template that were making those numbers look like they don't belong. But once I added some more white to the page, it was starting to look a little bit better. And I'm just going to go completely overboard here because you can never have too many lined 4x6 cards anyways. And even if I don't use them all, it's good to have lots on hand. So I just went ahead and cut up a second piece of paper. That also allowed me to have some 3x4s. So here I have this template, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work backwards. So I'm starting filling in all of these blocks with the white striped, like the white lined paper is like the default. And then what I'll do is I'll take it away in all the places where I don't want the white striped lined paper, if that makes sense. So it's not going to look quite this overwhelmingly white, but I know that I want to fill out some of these blocks with very little. And I also knew that I have a lot of these Ali Edwards quotes that I don't typically use in my pages, although I did use a whole bunch of them recently for that very reason, because I have so many of them. So I actually don't have as many as I thought. So I read through, and any that look like they might be appropriate, I'm pulling out. So I have that kind of pink and red one up at the top that's not really going to work with my color scheme, but I took it out just in case. And then the one at the bottom here says, I want you to continue being the absolute best part of my life. And I thought I could say like dear coffee, and then that might be a bit of a bit fun for the page. Now I really like this this one that I with the heart on it up here, but the heart doesn't have an appropriate saying. So I'm going to cover that up, and I've got a couple of ideas about what I might do there, but for now I'm just putting an acrylic piece there. I know with so much white on this page, it's throwing off the exposure of my camera, but just bear with me. It's not going to be this white for very much longer. I know I want to use the coffee sleeve over on the side there, because it shows, the Starbucks logo, that it makes it more obvious that it was a Starbucks location that we were at. That'll be in the journaling, of course. And then these wooden words, I've got enjoy and love picked out. They will go on the photos. I just haven't decided where. And now I'm just looking through my 3x4 cards to figure out where I'm going to cover up some things. And I thought I'm going to use this, but not the whole card. I'm just going to use I'm going to punch out the circle part of it. This punch is not quite big enough, but my next size up is way too big. So I'm going to go with the not quite big enough size. And it just takes me a while to get it lined up just perfectly. And this punch is not the greatest. It doesn't punch all that well, but it did a decent job, and then my scissors finished it off. It says let's go wander, and it has some trees and a little X, and it's cute. So I'm going to use that, but I don't quite know where. And then I'm also going to use this yellow striped one because it balances off the yellow that's off in the other corner with the word go on it. So I didn't want one spot of yellow. I wanted multiple spots of yellow. Yellow shows up in the photos as well, so that's why I went with that color. Now here's a bad idea. I decided I might want to have the numbers going off the edges of these photos. I'm not going to like that once I actually execute that, but I didn't know that yet. So I've placed it so that they're off to the side a little bit, but I haven't actually glued them down yet. Now there are a number of stamps that I want to use here, and so I'm doing this not so great idea of placing these stamps first. Did I just call them stickers? There's a number of stamps that I want to use from this Kelly Perky coffee set. They're all really relevant to the stories that I want to tell, but I am not thinking clearly as I do this. I am laying them out, and then I'm going to get really involved in my scrapbooking, and they're all going to go missing in various ways, and it's going to be a little bit frustrating for me. I found the coffee capital in my Seattle stamp set from Studio Calico, and I thought that might make a better phrase than whatever was on that heart to begin with. So I have an idea about what I'm going to do for that, but you'll see it a little bit later. Just looking at all the embellishments here. I want this page to have open space, and these circles are great for that. So this is an embellishment from Ali Edwards' Travel Stories kit, and I'm going to put that on the yellow striped card. And now I'm going to stamp, I wanted to stamp this little coffee mug from, I think it's from the Seattle stamp set. I'm just conditioning these stamps with my fingers, just so that the ink doesn't bead up on them. They stamp a little bit better when you condition them first. You could use an eraser as well, but I'm just using my hands. So I put them all on the block and stamped them all at once, and I used Memento ink. I think because the Space Needle smudged, and that's why I decided to use Memento ink, because it dries faster. But I didn't realize, I think that the only reason that smudged was because the gold was underneath of it, and that's a pigment ink. But anyhow, I was playing it safe. I didn't want to mess this up. So I have those images stamped, and now I also want to stamp that the coffee capital phrase. And I'm just stamping it on a piece of green cardstock. I don't know who makes this green cardstock. It was just in my stash. It's a nice kind of, it's not quite lime, but it's a nice bright color. It's warmer than a lime. I'm going to put that over where the gratitude and hope is, but I I also am looking, so I haven't figured out the heart yet for that, but at the same time, I'm thinking of a lot of things at once here, so I'm kind of moving from one idea to another very quickly. But I wanted an orange card. I like this kind of like green and orange color combo here, so I want to play off of that. So I grabbed an orange card and I want to add some pattern to this card, but I want to do it sort of quickly. So I'm going through my embossing folders and I thought this is a good way to add some pattern. You could do some stamping. It would be a great opportunity to use a background stamp, but I want something super subtle. So I decided to go with an embossing folder, and I really like that one because it looked kind of cozy, almost like a sweater, like the knitting of a sweater, but it didn't cover the whole card. So I decided to use this wood grain one. There's plenty of wood in these photos and in the Starbucks. We were at the Starbucks Reserve store, so it's full of beautiful, rich wood, and it's really nice. So I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, which is on another Rascog. It's just a little... It's nice to be able to just pull it over and do my die cutting and then roll it away when I don't need it anymore. So because that card was so thin, it did crunch the card a little bit, and it's got a white center to it. So whoops, oh, I'm just showing you all my cameras here. Sorry about that. As you can see, it did crack a little bit, but I don't mind the look. It's, where there's so much white on this page, it doesn't look so bad. I'm also going to stamp on the same green, and here the reason that I stopped cutting is I didn't want to cut too close to the coffee capital if I was going to use a heart punch on that, and I didn't want to encroach on its space. Now I'm looking through my dies for a set of heart dies. I don't have a set of heart dies, not the right kind. I have heart frames, but I don't have heart dies. I just don't have enough scrapbook supplies. I'm going to have to go shopping, I guess. Oh, well. I found some pinked circles. I love pinked circles, but I don't have the right sizes, it turns out, for my idea. But again, I have too many ideas at once, so that's why I'm all over the place here. I'm kind of working on two different ideas at the same time. One is the heart that's going to go over this heart, and then the other is this other orange card that I'm making. So I'm going back and forth between the two. I wanted to stamp this "Today is brought to you by coffee" in green, and I wanted to put it on the orange cardstock that I just embossed. So I want to cut it out, and I've got my punches here, so let's cut it out with this punch. I'm going to cut it a little high so that there's space below it to put that coffee cup that I stamped. So now I got distracted by the idea that I stamped the coffee cup, and I want to cut my coffee cup out, and I don't want to fussy cut it. So I'm going to put it through my Brother Scan and Cut. This is a new Brother Scan and Cut. I had one before, and I updated it to the DX version so that my husband could use it for his leather making hobby as well. I had never used it before, so it took a little bit of time to figure out what I needed to do, and I got it all. It's good. I got all the little embellishments that I needed. It cut it into pieces in some places, but that's okay. I didn't end up using the other ones anyhow. Now, ideally, I would have a pinked circle to go behind that circle punch, but I do not have a pinked circle that fits behind that circle punch. I have very few pinked circles in weird shapes, not the right sizes that I actually need. So I'm going to pop up this coffee cup and place it on the green circle, and you're going to see all of these three random thought trains all come together in a minute. I promise it'll all make sense. There, that's what I want. It's still not quite right because I wanted that pinked circle, right? But okay, so I don't have a pinked circle, so let's do a scalloped circle. And I could have probably found a pinked circle on I've got a Cricut Joy now, but I did not want to use a machine here. I just wanted to do it with my hands. So I found a scalloped circle die, as you can see. and it's the proper size. And so I'm just going to run it through my little tiny die cut machine, which is the one that I prefer. As long as something fits through that, that's the one I prefer to use. It's a Cuddle Kids. They don't make them anymore. I bought it on a steep discount at Michael's for like $4. And I actually bought 2 of them because it was so cheap. It was way back before companies made tiny die cutting machines. And so, yeah, I scored. Since then, I've given the other one away. But anyhow, I want to color in the coffee because it's just too white, too much white on there. So I just picked one of my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers and colored it in. The color is called beige that I used. It just makes it look like a craft coffee cup instead of a white one. And so now you can see that that card has that kind of pulled together. It's got a bit of white, it's got a bit of orange, and it's got the green that's going to show up elsewhere on the page. I also remembered that Christine sent me a whole bunch of random wood veneer pieces, including that really nice coffee cup wood veneer. So I want to use that. Now, what I would really like to do is trace that heart so that I can use it for the coffee capital. So what I thought I'd do is grab my light, whatever this thing is called. I use it for diamond painting. And as you can see, that card is really thick cardstock, but I could still see the heart through it. Barely, but I could see it. So this will give me a heart that will perfectly cover up that gratitude and hope heart, but still give me the same vibe. I'm going to cut it just a wee bit bigger at the bottom. And now, oh, someone was at the door. I was waiting for a new tripod, so someone was at the door. Now I can actually trace this, tracing it with my pencil, so that I can erase the lines afterwards. And this is where I'm making it just a tiny bit bigger. So I traced it the same size, but now when I cut it a wee bit bigger. I'm going to take my eraser, my white eraser, and just gently remove those pencil lines. And now that's the card that I wanted to have. Do a little bit of quick outlining just to emphasize the heart a little bit, and boom. That was what I had in mind. So I went to the door to get my tripod. I didn't set it up though, but there it is for a quick second. I just wanted to see it and make sure that it was okay, because it's going to change the camera angle a tiny, tiny bit so that my camera doesn't show so much of my lap when I zoom out. So anyhow, I am just getting myself back into the groove. Now, in the course of doing all of that, some of my stamps that I had placed out went missing. And so I was a little bit scattered because of that. I knew that some stamps were missing, and I knew that I had some ideas, but I was they were melting away as I realized I was looking for stamps. And I was like, no, now is not the time to go looking for stamps, because I have ideas and they're going to fade away if I don't do these things right now. So anyhow, they were stuck to my brother's Scan and Cut mat. It's like a plastic and it sticks a lot to cling stamps. So anyhow, I was able to find the missing stamps fairly easily. So we're back on track, and I think I attached that circle sticker from Allie Edwards, the cream colored one with the green mountains. Oh yes, also in the course of all of that, I lost the numbers 5 and the numbers 6. So I had to restamp them, grabbed the stamp set again. This is what got me off of my momentum right here. So had to restamp 5, restamp 6, repunch 5, repunch 6. I had to go get my punches that I had already put away and everything, but that's okay. This is why you don't put staticky Brother Scan and Cut mats on top of your work surface in the middle of a project, because things just stick to it and go missing. I cut down that coffee sleeve so that it wouldn't be so bulky. I'm just going to put it right here. And then that phrase sticker, it says, "On the hunt for the perfect cup." I'm going to stamp that on the bottom of this card. Probably should have done it before I added the bulky cup sleeve, but that's okay. The sleeve is not as thick as the stamp, so I'm going to be able to stamp on here just fine, especially since I made the sleeve half the thickness by removing part of it. So that stamped really well on the first try, so I didn't even really need my stamp positioner, but you never know until you need it, right? So I try to use it most of the time that I stamp. So that was from the Kelly Perky stamp set. I still have one more stamp that I haven't used yet, and I think, okay, so let's just get these glued down before I lose more of them. And here's where I'm going to realize I don't like this. Really, the second I adhered it, I was like, nope, don't like it. Just don't like it. So on the third one, I said, okay, I'm changing my mind about this. The rest of them I will put on so that the whole circle is on the photo. And now, third time a charm, I'm going to stamp for a third time some numbers and punch them out. So I will restamp 1 and I will restamp 2. By the way, I have cleaned up my scrap room and been in here several times, and I still haven't found the missing 5 and 6. So they're gone into the void. I'm going to pull those off. It doesn't matter if I left adhesive behind or tore or anything because it's going to be covered up by the new number 1 and number 2. So there we go. I'm going to put Enjoy here, and I put it so that sometimes you can use embellishments like this to cover up random people in the background. I actually don't want to cover up random people in the background because the crowd is part of the story. So I placed it specifically so that you can still see those 2 ladies' heads because they're part of my story. They didn't even know it at the time. And then I put Love here. I decided to put Enjoy and Love both in the same orientation just so that you're not like moving your head different ways to see them. And so this is coming together. This is pretty much what the design is going to look like. So what you see open here are the places that the journaling will go. And now I had that Dear Coffee idea. So I wanted to put Dear Coffee above that Allie Edwards quote. And I couldn't find my regular gel pen, so I used my Soufflé gel pen, which goes on clear but then dries to white. I just used my own handwriting, which is distinctly different than hers. If I could do something similar to hers, I would have done it, but I also didn't want to fuss around with that, so I just used my own handwriting. I felt like this one needed a little something, and that coffee cup was perfect just to add a little something and anchor that heart and fill up some of that negative space on the left side of the heart there. So this design paper, this is like a gold foil card. I don't know which kit it came from, probably Allie Edwards. And it's perfect with a circle in the center of it. So that punched Let's Go Wander works perfectly there. And now I'm not telling 6 stories here. So this isn't like 1 and then I'll put a number 1 up and journal what parts of the story goes with that 1 and then another journaling for 2. It's more numbered to show that this is a sequence of photos in the same process. So it's not like 6 random photos of this coffee shop. It's like this was the first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth and fifth, and then the 6th is we've eaten it and there's nothing left but crumbs. So in this go, it says go here and there, and I'm journaling. I'm saying Scott wanted to go to the Starbucks Reserve, which was a highlight for us. I did not know what the Starbucks Reserve was when I was agreeing to go to it. He was just like, this is something I want to do. I've heard about it and I want to go. So I'm like, okay, great. I went there and it was amazing. I'm so glad that he had heard of it and wanted to go. He almost went without me. He was going to go one of the days that I was at the workshop, but it didn't work out that way. So I lucked into this experience. So I just glued that enamel heart there, and I will add something to that. It's looking kind of stark, but I'll come back and fix that. I'm going to do my journaling, and I don't plan my journaling, so I'm just writing it down. Which one did I start with? This one. So I'll read it as I go. This place was amazing. I had no idea it even existed. It was a roastery and coffee bar and has amazing high-end gifts and Starbucks related art. It was crowded with people and full of energy. We got to see all the details of the coffee roasting process and got to try lots of cool, elaborate coffee brews. We started with 2 shots of nitro cold brew. This coffee is made with nitrogen gas to create a smooth texture and is served cold with lemon. It had a very light, almost tropical taste and went down very easily. Yum. That is actually not the story that is told on this page, but it was a lengthy story and I had space, so that's what I did. So here I just looked up on my phone the process that this coffee is made with nitrogen gas to create a smooth texture. I just copied that word for word from Wikipedia or whatever came up. Yeah, it looks like it was Wikipedia. So don't hesitate to do that. It's your story. You don't have to, think up everything. Sometimes someone else's words work just fine. You're not passing it off as your own or handing it in or anything. So now the next story that I'm going to tell, I'm going to start by adding a stamp here. This is another one of those Kelly Perky stamp sets from her coffee set. And this one is pretty intricate. Like it's a negative space stamp. So it's blocking, it'll be a big block of orange with a negative space that reads coffee shop notes. So I want this one to be fairly straight on the page. So I took a moment there to line it up with my Misty tool, and I'm using Stampin' Up Pumpkin Spice ink, and I am going to double stamp it right there, and didn't like how it turned out. I had a feeling that it wasn't quite lined up when I did it, and I was right. It wasn't lined up when I did it. So it shifted between the first stamp and the second stamp. So there you go. It's nice and crisp now. So I like how that turned out. And that ink will smooth out as it dries. It's a little bit splotchy at the end there, but I don't mind that. I'm just going to clean it up with a baby wipe because I don't have a stamp chamois on the go today. And gonna put that stamp away, I hope, before I lose it. There you go. It's a good habit to get into. So I will read you the journaling for this one. It says, Scott has always wanted to try siphon coffee, but it requires a lot of specialized tools and you can't get it at most coffee shops. So when we saw it on the menu here at the Reserve, we knew we had to order it. It was not cheap and took a long time to make. I think it was like a 10-minute process. It was a long time. I didn't write down the amount of time because I wasn't sure. It took a long time to make, but it was very cool to see it made in person after having watched YouTube videos that explain the science of this very unique beverage. So I am just writing this off the top of my head as I go, and I'm just trying to chunk it, knowing that these 3 or 4 journaling cards don't flow nicely from one another. So I want the journaling to make sense no matter which one you start with. So each story is a standalone story, and it's not like part of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6. It's just kind of things to be said about this spread. And the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is just saying it's sequential. That's it. Okay, so my next journaling says, we had an amazing barista who was so happy to have a chance to make our siphon coffee. She said it's rarely ordered, but she enjoys the process. When she started, everyone gathered around the bar to watch her make it. It looked like a science experiment with beakers, flames, and a lot of showmanship. The crowd was amazed at the process, which took a very long time. I said that twice, didn't I? That's what happens when you journal off the top of your head. Next I wrote, when she finally brought it to us, it was so rich and tasty and smooth, well worth the wait. Okay, so fast forward to the end of that, and now we'll do the last little bit of journaling on this one. Says, we enjoyed several different coffee drinks and a delicious chocolate croissant. What an experience for a couple of Starbucks fans like us. I'm so glad Scott suggested we go here. It was the highlight of a fun-filled trip. All right, so this one is coming together and it's almost done. Now I just need to check it for any final details, anything else that I might want to add, including that heart over there that is too white. So I grabbed a couple of my Stampin' Up! Heart punches and punched out of that green paper that I like so much that shows up in 2 places already. Put one on that little Ali Edwards embellishment, one over here on the circle, and then I'm going to put one here on this heart, on the white acrylic heart, and it feels like it needs a touch of black. So I pulled out these word stickers or phrase stickers, but none of them really worked. So I'm going to use that same punch again, a Stampin' Up! Punch, and put a little touch of black with that little black heart layered. So it ends up being 3 layered hearts there. And I really like how that looks. So these will go into their pockets. So this side goes onto the back side of the last page. And I just do it this way. That way I don't have to think about reversing anything. I just kind of stick it in. It's a little bit awkward, but it works. Now I just had to go over to my stash and grab another Becky Higgins Design A page protector. And then I will slide all of these cards into the pockets on the next page. And so that's it for this video, but there is one more video that captures the last of my pocket pages for Seattle. So make sure that you check out video 3. And if you haven't, no, video 4. If you haven't seen videos 1 and 2, check those out as well. All of them should be linked in the information section below. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.